The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, got some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show. I'm your host, Malik Wright. I'm proud that we're entering our second week of the show. This is obviously something we wanted to do for quite some time. A lot of stuff to get into, a lot of stuff to unpack. But if you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWS and studios. So, yeah, NFL week 1 is almost over. Obviously, we still have the Monday night games to worry about. But this was a weird week in football.
Very.
It was a weird week in football. We saw teams who were expected to win by big margins lose. We saw I guess we were hopeful that certain quarterbacks might return to form that didn't do so. There were some underwhelming performances, and we'll get into all of that. I guess I want to start with the news that broke the day, which was, Dak Prescott is now the highest paid quarterback player in the NFL. And I'll be honest with y'all, I love to see these players get paid. I'm always rooting for these guys to make a ridiculous amount of money, but for the life of me, can't understand the Dallas Cowboys logic here. For me, Dak Prescott hasn't shown anything to warrant that type of an extension. And I got to wonder at this point, does being the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback just come with the territory of you're going to make a ridiculous amount of money, even if you're not necessarily, deserving of said contract? I don't mean to be down on Dak Prescott. I don't mean to be that guy, but I can't understand for the life of me why he got paid the contract that he got paid. The Dallas Cowboys have yet to finally break through. The Dallas Cowboys have yet to reach up in the upper echelon of the NFC. We talk about them, obviously, as America's team. And obviously, when you talk about the Dallas Cowboys, you get clicks, you get people watching your shows and stuff like that. But let's be honest with you. The Dallas Cowboys haven't warranted this type of attention that they've been getting the last couple of years. It hasn't shown itself in the playoffs, hasn't shown itself on the football field. It's a lot of big names, right? It's a lot of unrealistic expectations from long-term Dallas Cowboys fans. Listen, I hate to be that guy, but for me, Dak Prescott was just not it. So giving him that contract to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Danny, I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are, man.
Yeah, I think it shows that they're conservative, and that's my issue with the Dallas Cowboys right now is it's not only just with the Cowboys, but you see with certain teams like the 49ers, like the Miami Dolphins at times where the organization just kind of stands pat, and I feel like that's where the Dallas Cowboys are. And what I mean by standing pat is this entire offseason, they didn't go out and make any crazy moves. They just really stood pat. They chilled at the running back position. They let CeeDee Lamb be the main wide receiver. You look at the defense, it really is Micah Parsons and then Trayvon Diggs, and you got a bunch of other guys. I just am really concerned about the Cowboys and Jerry Jones and what they want, right? Because if I put myself in the organization's shoes, you need to secure your quarterback, right? So securing your quarterback means, okay, let me just pay Dak Prescott, and we know we got a guy. We know we got a guy that isn't necessarily a superstar, but a guy who's a proven talent that can get you to the playoffs, that can put up great numbers, that can even be in the MVP conversation. But the guy that tends to leave things on the field when it comes to the playoffs. And that's what concerns me, right? Because if I look at the Cowboys, if I was in Jerry Jones's shoes, I'd be looking elsewhere. And I really don't know if he did. I don't know if he looked ahead to the draft. I don't know if he looked ahead and said, hey, is there a guy that we can go out and trade for that can give us more potential and a potential to do it deeper into the playoffs than Dak Prescott did? And that's what concerns me, because the number one alternative definitely is to go look in the draft, get a rookie in the top 10, top 15 that you can trust and is on a rookie contract. Because if he's on the rookie contract,
Mhm.
you can go pay Micah Parsons freely. You can go out and get another wide receiver to pair with CeeDee Lamb. You can go build more to the offensive line. There's so much more you can do on your team if you went out and you signed or drafted a guy early in the first round. And that's what concerns me, because Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, they pigeonholed themselves, in my opinion.
Yeah, I understand that, because you do have to pay one of the best run pass rush defenders, best defenders in the NFL here very, very shortly. And Micah Parsons, I felt like this might have been a little bit of a contract mismanagement. And I understand maybe there was a little bit of panic involved there. I have no idea. Maybe the Shadur Sanders performance over the weekend scared them off
Yeah.
from my theory that I had last week. I have no idea. But all I could tell you right now is I was just really not impressed with I would say I'm not impressed. I wasn't happy for Dallas Cowboys fans that they decided to take that money and utilize it for Dak Prescott. At least let him play out the season at this point and see if he can earn the contract, because 100% he's on a hot seat. 100% you want to see if that guy's going to rise to the occasion. For Dallas Cowboys fans, I feel you. I understand. There were some that were happy. There were some that were unhappy. But look, Micah Parsons' contract still has to get sorted out.
Yep.
We still have to figure out what's going to happen with a Micah Parsons contract here shortly, because he took care of CeeDee Lamb. He took care of Dak Prescott, who I felt like was the least important puzzle out of the three. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I wonder if they're going to be able to meet the expectations of a guy like Micah Parsons. But then you have to ask yourself a bigger question. What's going to happen to the remainder of the Dallas Cowboys roster once all your money
Yes.
is tied up into three players: Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and hopefully, if you're a Cowboys fan, Micah Parsons.
And
You know?
real quick, that's what concerns me, right? Because I respectfully, if I was in their
Mhm.
shoes, I'd see a quarterback like Sam Darnold that went out and had a great week one. And I know, okay, he just needs a good situation around him. The Vikings aren't likely to re-sign him because they got JJ McCarthy.
Right.
And then you go and you look at some of these quarterbacks in the draft, respectfully, even some of these backups in the NFL league, I think that they could do a good job. You look at the Falcon situation. You got Michael Penix Jr., you got Kirk Cousins. Okay, maybe you trade for Kirk Cousins, who's making far less than Dak Prescott is. Or you even look to the backups. And I know this sounds crazy, but all right, go trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, pay him $8-10 million a year, and you save $40 to $50 million. And you know what you can do with that? You can go spend on the O-line or somewhere else on the team. So I can
You
understand
can
how
give it
that's
to me.
Huh?
You can give it to me.
Or you can give it to you
You
as
give it
well.
to
I
me.
think it's probably a better use of their money right now. But all in all, I think Dak Prescott is solid, and he keeps them where they are. He keeps them above average in the fight to win their division. But the guy that isn't, he's never going to take him to the Super Bowl, and that's what concerns me.
But when you say he keeps them where they are, we got to have that dialogue,
Yeah.
because where they are hasn't done anything for them
Yes.
lately. And like at this point, I feel like you're paying for average to below average at this
Yes.
point, because, and I don't mean he's below average. I mean, the results have been below average, which your expectations have been average. You know, I, I I've got to be honest with you about it, man. I don't see the silver lining with the Dallas Cowboys signing a guy like Dak Prescott. I always told you, I thought maybe Dak Prescott made sense for other people, but I don't know if I felt the exact same about him with the Dallas Cowboys. At
Yeah.
this point, you know what he is, you know what you have in him. Expecting anything different at this point is fool's gold.
Yep.
So, want to keep the conversation rolling. Appreciate you guys spending your morning with us on the Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Again, we literally have content going out each and every single day. We're live every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday for the Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show. And Wednesdays, we have State of the Jungle, which we talk all things Bengals, and we recap every single Bengals game.
Real quick before we move on, we got our guy Sean Brandon. We appreciate you in the chat. He said, guys, this is how contracts work. Next guy up gets his bag. And he said, did you really compare Dak to Darnold and Garoppolo? I'm not comparing them as quarterbacks. What I personally said when I brought up Sam Darnold and Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm looking at that quarterback plus $40 million left to play with. And he said that's this isn't overpaying. It's business in the NFL. I think it's overpaying for Dak. I don't think Dak Prescott is a superstar quarterback. I think Dak Prescott is right on the tier of a borderline top 10 guy, a guy who's going to do great numbers, put up great numbers for you. And when you look at him, what he did with the Browns yesterday, he's not the reason why they won that game. He's the reason why the offense was fine, was solid. He threw the ball, but the reason why they won that game was their defense, was because Deshaun Watson was putrid. So Dak Prescott is fine. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. He's going to take them in playoffs. He's going to keep them in games. He's potentially going to win a couple playoff games. But is he the guy to take them to the Super Bowl? Is he worth that $60 million? I personally would have looked to the alternative. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Well, no, I want to touch on that a little bit more. There's a reason why Cowboys fans aren't excited as you are. Listen, Sean, everything you said was individualized success. You said, well, he was second in MVP voting. Okay, who gives a shit? Let's be honest.
Yep.
Right? Where were the Cowboys?
Yep.
Did they break through? No, they didn't. The guy's been on the job for how long now at this point? You know what you have in the guy. I think that's perfectly fine to say. And to be honest with you, he's been on some really, really talented football teams that have not produced the results that you're looking for. Now, maybe the Cowboys will go out and shut me up this season, and Dak Prescott will be like, see, I was worth the contract that I was paid. But the numbers suggest otherwise at this point. How many years has he been on the job? So when I get on here with this mic, it's not to make a hot take. I genuinely don't believe the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott marriage will result in a championship or even anywhere close to it. So for me, when I sit up here and I say, I think this was a bad investment in dollars for the Dallas Cowboys, I mean it. I'm not looking for a hot take. The fact of the matter is, you have to produce in this business. It is how business works, but this is a results-driven business. And guess what? I don't care how talented my quarterback is. If we continuously fall short, right? If we continuously fall short, I'm going to say, maybe this just isn't the marriage that is supposed to be. Maybe it's time to turn over a new leaf and try something different. You don't believe me? Look at the Rams. Look what the Rams did. They were stuck in a situation with Jared Goff, and they weren't getting the results that they desired, so they moved on from him. Now, they got a pretty good get.
Yeah.
And Zach, I hear what you're saying too in the comment section. See, this is unlike any other morning show. We're going to interact with you. Only one team wins a championship. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is coming available anytime soon. That's a very short-sighted way to look at it, in my opinion. Hindsight is always 20/20. We don't know who's going to win the championship this upcoming year. We don't know. To simply say, oh, Patrick Mahomes isn't available, that's ridiculous. No offense. That's ridiculous. Any team could have a good roster and a good quarterback and potentially win a championship. Patrick Mahomes is not the only quarterback that is capable of winning a Super Bowl in the NFL. But again, I think it's going to be one of those situations where we might agree to disagree, and that's fine. That's sports, right? We'll agree to disagree. The way I see it, though, I don't think Dak Prescott was worth the contract he got paid. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but as what he's shown as of, today, results, what it's been year after year after year, the Dallas Cowboys are going to be stuck in this situation where they're competitive, but not finally breaking through. If you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Want to keep the conversation rolling. A lot of people had a lot of heat on Tom Brady's debut, Daniel. What did you think, man? You watched a little bit more of the game than I did. I didn't think the debut was that bad, man.
Yeah, I can see what people are saying. And listen, he definitely did sound a little rusty, but at the end of the day, you guys have to understand, like, it is a completely new setting for somebody to go from, talking on podcasts and talking in general and, having these great quotes cut up and posted to TikTok and posted to social media with these hype videos behind them, to being in a booth where you're sitting there for 3 hours and you got a little sheet of every player's names and you got the game in front of you and you got a partner next to you and you got a game going on and you got people in your ear and you got people handing you stats. It is a completely different environment being a play-by-play and being in the booth. So Tom Brady, I'm not too concerned about it. Listen, I think the dude needs to find his voice, and there is a possibility where he isn't great in the booth, and that's completely okay. But to say that, I saw some people saying he provided no value, he provided no insight, that's bullshit, respectfully. That is complete BS. You look at a couple things, one of the things that popped out was, like, this dude has insight that None of us have. Nobody has. The dude has played in the NFL. He competed at the highest level, and that brings value. And that's what I'm looking for when I'm watching the game personally. I want to hear stories. I want to hear the value. And something quick that came up was he was talking about the defense coordinator Zimmer, and he was talking about his experience playing against Zimmer. And for me personally, as a viewer, that's what I want to hear. So I'm not too concerned about it. I saw people crapping on him and talking about him. Listen, it was his first game. It's overwhelming. And at the end of the day, the dude, we'll see. We'll know 5 games, 6 games into it if, okay, maybe the booth isn't for Tom Brady. Maybe it's something that he's not great in. But I still heard a lot of valuable things. And I personally, watching the game, at least I didn't want to, turn off the audio and my ears weren't bleeding. So, and real quick, one last thing was a lot of people are saying that he wasn't talking enough. And that's something as a broadcaster, they literally teach you that JJ Redick said this. Hey, they teach you to let the play-by-play announcer do his thing, let the game breathe. And I'm to be honest, I'm not too worried about it.
Well, I always trust Daniel's insight on conversations like this. Daniel went to the prestigious Walter Cronkite School of Broadcast and Journalism and at ASU. So, he obviously always has the insight, to perfection down to a T. But in all seriousness, though, listen, I think the expectations for a guy making his debut, and I hate to keep talking about Tom Brady really quickly. I just wanted to touch on this. I think Tony Romo kind of skewed it a little bit. I think people want you out there call Jim. Hey, Jim. Hey, Jim. I think they want you out there essentially telling the plays as they're happening, providing that type of feedback. But guess what? It's one of those things where that got annoying for a lot of people. Some people want to just sit back and watch the game and analyze it as it comes. They don't want you telling the plays as it's happening. They don't want to hear you talking. Hey, Jim, this is going to be a first down. Jim, this is going to be a great play. They don't want to hear that. Right? So I kind of give Tom Brady a little bit of break. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. He's doing this as a side hobby. This is a side mission, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be one of those conversations where it'll be fluid. We'll keep talking it through. And to me, for instance, it's going to be one of those things where I think that over time, Tom Brady will step into his own. But no doubt nerves were a real thing.
Yeah.
Right? Nerves are a real thing. Tom Brady could step in and wind up being great at it. But I also don't think Tom Brady has necessarily the most he's a funny guy in his own way. But he's not the most outgoing personality-wise. And I think that people think that the greatest quarterback of all time is going to step in and become the greatest announcer of all time. And it just doesn't always work that way. And I agree with you, Mike Straw. He said a nice $35 million a year side mission, 100%. Hopefully I'm as good in my profession one day that I could do a side mission where I could speak to a school or speak to a class for $1 million or something like that at some point in time. Again, maybe that's just fool's gold. I have no idea. But again, be easy on Tom Brady. I think he'll be fine as this thing continues. Make sure you guys do us a favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. I see all the Joe Burrow comments. I see everybody dissecting Joe Burrow's game in the comment section. I'm going to get to that. I even see a take, Marissa, that I would like for you to highlight right now, if you can, for me, because I want to get to it. And I want to make sure that I get to it at some point. So just don't put it up on the screen just yet. But if you can, just highlight it for me. It's from Aaron Butler, and it's the Joe wasn't worth the contract. I want to make sure we get to that because, brother, stay tuned. I've got something special for you. But again, if you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. Let's move on over to the NFL. So one thing I want to touch on before I get to the Joe Burrow stuff, actually, is I want to do our overreactions if we can. I'm going to get to Joe Burrow, but I want to do our overreactions. So the first one that I saw that was pretty popular was Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson sucks. And I wish I could sit up here and I could tell you otherwise, but I've seen enough. The towel is thrown in. Deshaun Watson is what he is at this point. I don't know what transpired that year. Well, I know what transpired, but I don't know what happened to his game. I've never seen someone lose their superpowers that made them who they were, who they are, quite quickly as a Deshaun Watson. I don't know. I genuinely do not know what happened. I have never seen a guy fall off a cliff this bad. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm in the media. I'm a Bengals fan. I'm not afraid to admit that, right? People say, oh, you shouldn't say who you're a fan of, but that's bullshit. We all get into this space because we're fans of the sport. We love a certain team. We cover it. We don't get into it because we want to write journalism stories and we want to talk on a mic. That's bullshit. I hate when they teach that in schools. So when Deshaun Watson came to Cincinnati, I'll be honest with you, my exact reaction was, holy shit. When he came to Cleveland, that was my reaction. I was scared because I saw what that guy was able to do in Houston, and I said, holy crap. You pair that together with a running back like Nick Chubb and the weapons that the Browns have, Deshaun Watson is 100% going to be a dude for Cleveland. I couldn't be more happy to say I was wrong. He's not been that. Yeah. But now it's a point where it's almost, do you even play the guy? Or do you pay the guy to stay at home? Because the results that he's put on the football field have been downright atrocious. At this point, you have to have the conversation with yourself. Is a guy like Dorian Thompson, is he going to be able to produce better results than a Deshaun Watson? Deshaun Watson's bad.
Very bad.
He went from being one of the best quarterbacks in the league to absolutely one of the worst. This is very reminiscent of what happened with Russell Wilson and the end of his journey with the Seattle Seahawks, or his first year with the Denver Broncos. This is bad. And at some point, I understand you made the investment you made, but you have to ask yourself, at what point has this become a detriment to our team? I don't think any team is going to trade for him. Maybe it's he doesn't want to be in Cleveland, because if you remember when that whole thing was happening, that was the whole sentiment. Deshaun Watson didn't want to be in Cleveland. He wanted to be with it in Atlanta. That was the whole conversation. But Cleveland came in and they gave him the contract. And then, when you get that contract, all guaranteed, of course, I'm excited to be in Cleveland. Of course, I'm excited to be the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback. But the results that a guy like Deshaun Watson has produced, man, it's bad. Daniel, what say you?
Malik, and this is where I'm going to be honest, it's over for Deshaun. It is completely over. And how I look at Deshaun Watson is I'm just looking at Deshaun, and man, it's sad to see. It's sad to see from the performance on the field. And put yourself in Deshaun's shoes real quick. And I just want you to sit and let's try to figure out what went wrong. I think it's almost similar, and this is the best comparison I can use, is a Johnny Manziel. And the reason why I say Johnny Manziel was very outgoing. He was very out there about what caused his downfall in the NFL. And it was his personal life. It was never the on the field things. He said as soon as he stepped foot on Cleveland or into Cleveland, he thought he was the man. And he went into a depression. Johnny Manziel stopped going to practice. He stopped a lot of these things because of what he had going on in his personal life. And we went from seeing a dude in college football who was the greatest thing we've ever seen, into the NFL, where Johnny Manziel was just another guy. Johnny Manziel wasn't the franchise. Johnny Manziel was a detriment to his team.
Well, let me just say this.
Yes.
Okay. Before we get into it, Johnny Manziel had a whole lot of other shit going on. But, I'm talking about this guy was doing drugs, partying with Drake. He was treated like the guy. Yes. So to take a big time guy who was used to doing what he want, not giving two craps, missing practice, doing that in the third in college, and then coming to putting a big time personality like Johnny Manziel in a city like Cleveland, that was never going to work out.
Agreed. And totally right. And I think the comparison I'm trying to make is it's the off the field. When I look at Deshaun Watson and that 2-year span, I truly believe that changed him as a quarterback forever. And I truly believe that when I look at Deshaun Watson and how he just went from being the greatest quarterback, top 5 quarterback, to a nothing, I think it was really because of everything that he had going on. Because, like I say, you don't just lose that, but the dude for 2 years was in the headline. The dude for 2 years was getting bashed on social media. And I'm sure he was doing a ton of work behind the scenes to cover his ass to even be in this position of playing the NFL again. So I saw a couple clips too where the offensive line failed. Like Deshaun Watson went to help up the O-line. The O-line shrugged him off. And it was kind of what happened, with Russell Wilson in Denver, to where he just didn't gel with the team. So I think his teammates are likely done with him. And at the end of the day, the product that he put out on the field, all his teammates can see that. The coach can see that.
Mhm.
It's wraps for Deshaun. I have no faith that he can come back and be a star quarterback.
Yeah, I was holding out hope for Deshaun, just to see maybe this guy could return to being the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the league. Hasn't happened. It is what it is. Next overreaction. Bryce Young is not it. That is the overwhelming sentiment amongst people. I want to remind everybody, first game. First game. This could be a little bit of Alabama bias coming out. I hope it's not. But again, first game, new coach. I think it can't get much uglier than what it was the other day. I'm not completely out on Bryce Young yet. Obviously, he needs to put it all together. The concerns of his small frame, all that kind of stuff like that does play a part. You wonder if that guy's going to be able to break through. What are your thoughts on Bryce Young, Dan, before I get to the next overreaction?
Overall, I think it's too early to say he's a bust and he's a terrible quarterback. I think this could be a route that we look at the Sam Darnold, and we look at a lot of these other quarterbacks. If you head into the NFL in a shitty situation, excuse my French, a terrible situation, you're going to look terrible a lot of the times. There's very few quarterbacks in the NFL that can step into an organization that is as disorganized as the Panthers was and really go out and show out. So I cut Bryce Young some slack, because how I look at it is, if I take Bryce Young right now and if I put him on the best team in the NFL, a 49ers, do I think he can have success? Do I think he can look great? That's kind of my, radar for, okay, is this guy good or is he terrible? I think we could see Bryce Young in a 49er system, and I think he could do what Brock Purdy's doing.
Okay.
And that's where I kind of look at it. And I do think a lot of it is the Panthers O-line. They were terrible with the Saints, or against the Saints. So I don't think Bryce Young is terrible, but I will say a quarterback pretty much has 3 years in their NFL before they really see ghosts and before they really change who they are as a quarterback. So I think Bryce Young can still be fine. I think if he goes to a different team or if they build around him, but as of right now, the Panthers will be terrible this year, and that's what's concerning.
I want to keep the conversation rolling. A lot of people are down on Bo Nix after that start. I'll say hold your horses. We had our good friend Benjamin Albright on, who covers the Denver Broncos, also NFL insider. He talked about the struggles that Bo Nix might face. He said, pump the brakes on Bo Nix. Don't be so bullish on the guy. And I like to think that we're going to be some growing pains involved. I think you got to remember, not every quarterback comes into the league like a CJ Stroud, right? Not everybody can have the debut of a Jaden Daniels, right? These guys might go through some growing pains, some ebbs and flows. It's important to never get too high, never get too low, remain even keeled. And I think that's a situation that we have to face when it comes to a guy like Bo Nix. I think it'll get better for Bo Nix as time progresses. But we also talked about this gauntlet that he faces the next couple of weeks of quarterbacks. I mean, of defenses. It's going to be tough. I don't think any other young quarterback has faced a gauntlet quite like the one the Denver Broncos are coming up. When I say elite defense, almost after elite defense after elite defense, that's what they're facing with for the next 4 to 5 weeks. So it's one of those things where, again, it's going to look rough, but I think he'll come out of it looking a lot better. Even if they start 0-4, I think he'll start to pick up a little bit of steam as season goes on. But it's important not to be so low on him, if that makes sense.
One thing on that game, I think people saw what really went on. I saw a quarterback that looked extremely confident, and there's two sides of it. The one side, he is old. Yes. So that's the concern. Okay. Is this the final product? But the dude was overly confident. And that was my biggest takeaway is, okay, he was trying to make throws off his back foot. That's an issue. His pocket presence was terrible. Kept backing up. That was the issue. But the dude was making some strikes down the field. Cortland Sutton couldn't catch the ball at times. And it really is the situation. And I saw the dude, it was a 6-point game against the Seahawks. They lost by 6. It was a one-possession game throughout the entire game. So I'm not concerned about Bo Nix. If anything, I look at Sean Payton and the organization of the talent they put around him. I think Bo Nix right now is probably one of the best rookie quarterbacks. I think he honestly looked better than Caleb Williams. So Bo Nix, I'm not concerned about it. The only concern I would have is, can they get talent around him fast enough before this dude turns 28 and he's going to get a new contract or be slated to get a new contract when he's 29. So that's the concern. But Malik, he looked confident. He ran for a touchdown and they only lost by 6.
Again, want to thank you guys for spending your morning with us. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have almost 100 people watching us live. We appreciate you guys for spending your Monday. Aren't you guys supposed to be at work or something right now? Appreciate you guys spending your morning with me and getting our take, through the entire NFL action. We are going to be talking Joe Burrow here very shortly. Want to make sure we get to him. And I want to get all your opinions. I want you guys to kind of sound off in the comment section. Let me know the good, the bad, the ugly, what you feel about Joe Burrow. We are going to get to the Joe Burrow discussion. We're going to talk about Joe Burrow. We're going to talk about it all on the show. There are some more overreactions I want to get to, but before we do, I want to make sure that we tackle this fantasy football takeaways from this past week. We have TWSN fantasy football analyst Steve Bradshaw joining us live. We're going to get back to the overreactions and we're going to get to Joe Burrow, but I want to bring into the show now Steve Bradshaw. What's going on, Steve? How we doing?
Good. How about yourself? Excited to talk some football.
Not that good.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're sitting good. Your Bears just, shocked the I won't say the world, but they just shocked me and Daniel. Right? They beat the Tennessee Titans in a spot where we didn't think that, we didn't think that they would do that. Obviously, Caleb didn't look great. He went through a lot of growing pains. We expect we expect him to struggle a little bit. We expect him to look like a rookie quarterback, but I think that for the guy being picked with the first overall and all the hype and the second coming of Patrick Mahomes, I think a lot of people were expecting to see a little bit more. But it's okay, okay? We won't beat the guy up too much on the show. But listen, man, that's not what we wanted to talk about. You can certainly talk about it. You can give your opinion on your Chicago Bears, but I'm primarily interested in hear what your thoughts were, your fantasy football takeaways from this past week. Who surprised you? Who was underwhelming? Steve, the floor is yours.
Yeah, a lot of the tight ends this week were very underwhelming. I mean, you have guys like Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride, really all the elite tight ends just did not have a good week. And to that, I'd say just don't panic yet. You're having guys like Isaiah Likely, and I'll talk about him in a minute on waiver wire pickups. While yes, I do think it's promising, keep in mind that these tight ends are asked to do more than just run routes. They also have to block. They also have other functions in this offense to where they're not going to be as consistent on a week-to-week basis. And that was kind of, my biggest takeaway. I feel like everyone was in on the year of the elite tight end. They kind of disappointed, but that's not really a viable strategy to just panic right away because you should have been expecting that. You're not going to have all these 7 great tight ends be elite every single week. That's kind of just the nature of the game. I'd say overall it's kind of a funky week. There were obviously your top guys like Tyreek Hill going crazy, but even the guys like CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua went out with an injury, kind of disappointed, but someone that really kind of impressed me, I will say, is a guy like I hate Devon A-Chain really went crazy. Wow. I think he is the real deal. And it's tough because I was in on him and I was kind of not expecting this out the gate. I was kind of thinking, maybe he'll be a second half player. Mm-hmm. But man, Devon A-Chain looked really good. If you drafted Devon A-Chain, you should be feeling very good about yourself. He had 7 targets out of the backfield. He clearly showed that receiving usage and that electricity with the ball in his hands. So interesting week 1, but I think Devon A-Chain was a big winner and kind of a funky week overall, but glad to have football back, man. It was a fun time.
I'm glad to have football back too. And I know Daniel wants to get on the discussion too, but I want to touch on something real quick. I think Isaiah Likely has true tight end 1 upside in this Ravens offense. You got to wonder how much did the injury of Mark Andrews take the steam out of him. Now, when you go back and you watch the film of that game, it wasn't all as bad as people think it was for Mark Andrews. Daniel and I were sitting back, we were talking about it. It really did come down to they were bracketing him. They were doubling him. They were making life a little bit more difficult for him. But I don't think that what Isaiah Likely showed was a fluke. If you go back to his days in Coastal Carolina, this is what he does, right? It's going to be a situation where I feel like the Ravens are going to be forced to make a decision soon about who their tight end 1 is going to be. Is it going to be a Mark Andrews, right? A guy, he's an old, reliable, the veteran guy that you could count on, right? Sure-handed. Or do you go with a guy like Isaiah Likely, who, in my opinion, fits this offense to a T? He's fast. He's quick twitch. He can make guys miss. He's everything you would want in a tight end position. Now he's a little bit smaller than a guy like Mark Andrews, but he does all the similar things. Isn't the blocker that a Mark Andrews, tries to be out there? But I still think Isaiah likely showed enough, to make fantasy owners of him pretty excited. This is why I wanted him. This is why I wanted him for my Bengals personally. This is why when they rated him very, very highly, I said, why don't you draft the guy? And they passed over the guy over and over again. This did not shock me. When I saw what Isaiah likely was able to do at Coastal Carolina, to see it translate to the NFL the way it has been is not that shocking. So I guess the point I wanted to ask you was, I don't believe this is a fluke. Do you think we'll continue to see Isaiah likely show up week after week after week like this?
I don't think this is a fluke at all. I mean, if you look at how he played in week 1, he had 35 routes run versus Andrews at 38. He had 53 snaps versus Andrews at 59. I'm not sure that he is going to be this dominant. He had 12 targets versus Andrews at 2. I don't think that's going to continue week in and week out. I don't think it's going to be that clear cut. But no, I agree. Likely is a very good player, and especially how the Ravens run their offense, I think they definitely want to use a ton of 2 tight end sets, because outside of Zay Flowers, they don't really have any other great receivers. Rashad Bateman kind of just looked like himself, which isn't too good, and likely did really, really impress me. So I don't think he's a fluke at all. I think he's probably going to finish the year as a back-end tight end 1. I think he is a very good player. I would say calling Mark Andrews dead seems a little premature, but I definitely would be concerned if you were kind of thinking he's going to be a top 3 tight end coming into the year. I think he's more so a mid tight end, and I think likely is kind of right there with him.
Now, before I switch the conversation over to Daniel, and people, we will get to the Joe Burrow discussion. Trust me, we will. That's a hot topic. We need to talk about the Bengals. We need to talk about how the Bengals fell flat on the face. We're going to get to that. But there's a guy that I'm a little disappointed in you, Steve. I'm disappointed you didn't mention him right off the bat on this show. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not the biggest fan. I used to be a big fantasy guy until I came out of retirement and I realized I sucked at fantasy football. But there's a guy who had a great performance on Sunday, and I don't believe it's being talked about enough. I don't think it was fool's gold. I think he's going to continue to have that repeated type of performance. His name is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon was underutilized in Cincinnati. Joe Mixon has always been the type of back that got better with the more touches he got. He got 33 touches, right? From a receiving standpoint, from a rushing standpoint. That showed me this Texans offense is going to utilize him. They're going to unleash Joe Mixon. And that's what he needed. Cincinnati was never going to be that place where he was going to be able to get the most bang for his buck, because they were very committed to the passing game. Joe Mixon is going to thrive with the Houston Texans, man. And I want you to touch on that a little bit more just to get your overall thoughts on it. I don't think it was a fluke. I've seen Joe Mixon for years in Cincinnati. I know what he is capable of doing. I believe that this guy is going to continue to get stronger. And I'll be real with you. I'll be going to limb. It wouldn't shock me if Joe Mixon led the league in rushing this year, just being honest with you.
Yeah, I was not really a big Joe Mixon guy coming into the year, so that was definitely a shock to me. I just don't think that I didn't think he was a very efficient back. I thought, becoming older, kind of hitting the age cliff, he was going to take a much smaller role. Clearly not. Yeah, that's a good point. He had 30 carries, which is nuts. I did not see that coming at all, especially with how many targets the top guys still got. I mean, Nico had 8, Diggs had 6, Tank Dell had 8. So it seems like this offense is just going to be funneled through those 4 players. It's going to be Mixon running the ball, and if they don't run it, they're going to throw it to Diggs, Nico, and Tank, and that is it. So I think, Mixon's going to benefit a ton from that because the offense showed out, and they are clearly great. He's going to have those red zone opportunities. So I wasn't super high in Mixon coming into the year. I didn't think the Texans would be a super run-heavy team in this extent, but no, they show they want to run the ball. So I would be optimistic about Mixon for the rest of the year. I think he could definitely finish as an RB1.
Yeah, man, I'm really pumped up for Joe Mixon. I'm excited to see what he is capable of doing here down the stretch. That's a guy that I always felt could have got more, could have had produced more results here in Cincinnati if he was given, obviously the opportunity to touches. It's very similar to how I felt about Giovanni Bernard's career in Cincinnati. I always felt like that maybe that guy could have done a lot more if he was in a system or a situation in which he benefited from getting the opportunity. So again, I don't think Joe Mixon's potential was a fluke at all. And I think that's that's a credit to the Houston Texans. Their fantastic play call that they have as well there. It's going to be very interesting. Now, let me ask you this. We're going to have you back on the show later on this week, but is there anybody that you think that fantasy football fans or players should be on the lookout for this week?
Are you talking about waivers or just
Yes, waivers?
Waivers, yeah. One guy obviously likely is the top priority, but I'd also be trying to grab Greg Dortch. He had a very underrated game. You're kind of looking for the Cardinals wide receiver too, and Kyler Murray, even though he didn't have a great fantasy game because he had, I believe, 14.5 points. He only had one touchdown, unfortunately, which kind of capped his day overall. Marvin Harrison didn't really do much, but he looked very good in whole. So I'd be trying to get Greg Dortch. He had 6 receptions for 47 yards, and he looked like the wide receiver 2 there. I think that's going to be a very profitable role, and he's very cheap. You're not really risking anything. So I think he's a solid player. I think it's going to be a good offense. And if you can just grab him, stash him on your bench, I think it could definitely be a nice little plug and play in your flex spot in some weeks where the Cardinals have a good matchup.
That's Steve Bradshaw, man. Steve, I appreciate you so much for joining the show, my man. We're looking forward to have you back later in the week as we get people all squared away with their starts and sits for the week 2 of the NFL. Steve, again, congrats to your Bears, man. I appreciate you joining the show. Looking forward to having you on later in the week, my man.
Yeah, thanks, man. We'll talk some more for week 2, and I hope things get better with the Bengals.
we hope so. Wait. There's actually one quick thing.
Good question.
Someone, great question by Gary Jellison, real quick. See, we try to get to these questions in real time. It says, is J.K. Dobbins for real in fantasy in Harbaugh's system? Wanted to get to that question really quickly.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, actually, because I'm a big J.K. Dobbins fan. I feel like it would be a little bit of an overreaction to go crazy, but since it was a question, I am going to overreact. And he looked very good. I think J.K. Dobbins is a phenomenal talent, and the Chargers clearly want to run the ball. Now, I'm not sure he has the same breakaway speed. You could kind of tell watching the game when he was getting 40 yards up the field, he was getting gassed, or I don't know, just doesn't have the same it factor he did 3 or 4 years ago, which, makes sense. But overall, I don't think it should have been a question. I wasn't expecting it to show in week 1, but I think he is miles ahead of Gus Edwards. Kamani Vidal was never good. So J.K. Dobbins is a guy that if your league mates are going to try and take advantage of you and sell him high, I would buy him for a reasonable cost, give up a few of your bench players with upside per se. And if you have him, I would not be selling him at all. I would definitely keep him. It's just if he can stay healthy. That's always been the question, but I think he is legit, especially in that Charger system.
So you hear it from Steve Bradshaw first. J.K. Dobbins is the real deal. Steve, once again, man, I want to thank you so much for joining the show. Looking forward to have you on later in the week, my man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Again, we want to get back to the overreactions, and we are going to get to the Joe Burrow discussion here very, very shortly. We left off with talking Bo Nix, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Daniel Jones and the people that are down on Daniel. What did you make of the Giants, Daniel? And or didn't make of the Giants? I know a lot of people were excited for Malik Neighbors. A lot of people had all these, betting all these props, and we'll talk about the bets later on. But what were your overall thoughts on New York Giants? What were your overall thoughts on Daniel Jones? Is this thing salvageable, or did the Giants make a mistake by not addressing the quarterback position a little bit more serious, or even drafting a quarterback in the position that they were this year?
I think it's ridiculous what they're doing. And I understand what they're attempting to do, but at the end of the day, Malik, Daniel Jones is not it. He's not. And this isn't to say that he can't go to another team and have, a Sam Darnold-esque, change or a, improvement of his career, but he's not it with the Giants. It's just not happening. I went and rewatched that game too. There are some good throws that he made, and that's obvious. Him using his legs, very talented with his legs. But his one interception, his pick six, it was terrible, Malik. And that's the part that irritates me We've been seeing this. He threw 2 interceptions. He did it in the preseason. He did it all last year. He had one good season. That was with, in Brian Dable's first season as head coach. I'm out on Daniel Jones, and the Giants should be too. I think it's ridiculous how they don't address the quarterback position, and they need to get rid of him this season. And
Wow.
it's not to say
This season?
He shouldn't finish the season as a starter. No shot.
Wow.
No
Okay.
shot. With the performance that they had, losing 20
So
to
turn
6.
to Drew Lock.
I would turn to Drew Lock midway through the season. Totally. And that's just to say, listen, like, when I look at, in hindsight, I still think Malik Neighbors probably was the right selection because he is going to be a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. I think he'll be that by the end of this season, but he just needs a quarterback. So I don't think that they made a mistake drafting Malik Neighbors over a quarterback, but there's no doubt in my mind, I'm doing whatever the hell it takes this season. I mean, they'll have a top 10 pick, so go trade that top 10 pick and get up into the top 5, but you're not leaving this upcoming year without a young quarterback in the NFL draft because Daniel Jones, he's not it.
Wow. Some harsh words from Daniel Alameda when it comes to the New York Football Giants draft strategy and their planning for the future. I want to thank you guys for spending your mornings with the Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show, TWSN and crew. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications. Don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. Let's move on over to what you all want to hear us talk about. Let's talk about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Can you bring up that comment for me, Marissa, that I brought up earlier in the show? I believe it was made from our good friend who's a huge Bengals fan, Aaron Butler. And he says, Joe wasn't worth the contract. Dak, Lamar, Josh, Patrick wins way more than Joe Burrow. Jake Browning last season won at a higher rate than Joe. We should have had this on a segment of Overreaction. Those quarterbacks that you just named, outside of Mahomes, haven't done jack shit. We talk often about the Ravens. And, I try to be as respectful as possible. But let me dissect the Ravens for a little bit for you. The Ravens have a play style that's not conducive to long-term winning in the playoffs. That's why you don't see them win games, which is why Lamar Jackson has won, 2 playoff games in his entire career. You get all the MVPs that you want, but you don't think Lamar Jackson would trade those MVPs in for a trip to the Super Bowl? Those are regular season accomplishments. We already know what you are as a player. A MVP states that you are a great individual player. You uplift the team, but that is a regular season award. What happens if that award goes from regular season and they tie it into what you do to the playoffs as well? Again, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow can't really be compared because Joe Burrow has been places Lamar Jackson is hoping to go. I don't think that Joe Burrow's, his vision is to win an MVP and he'll be satisfied with that. And I'm not saying Lamar Jackson is as well, but to use Lamar Jackson almost as a situation where you say, he is deserving of his individualized contract that he did get. He is 100% deserving of that. But I don't think he uplifts his team when it matters the most in crunch time. But also a part of that goes down to, are you available for your team? We've seen Lamar Jackson deal with injuries and ailments down the stretch for his team where they have had to literally turn to Tyler Huntley and the playoffs for a team. Joe Burrow's been out there. We've seen Joe Burrow out there, hurt, injured, terrible offensive line, take his team to a Super Bowl. We've seen play calling go out the window and Joe Burrow puts the team on his back. We've seen Joe Burrow break a sack on a critical third down from a Chris Jones and make a play that leads his team back in a comeback victory. We've seen Joe Burrow take his team back from being down almost 15 to 20 plus points against Kansas City Chiefs away in Arrowhead Stadium and take his team to, the Super Bowl to upset the Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen Joe Burrow get sacked 8 times, 7 times against the Tennessee Titans and lead his team back, albeit he didn't do it alone. Nobody does it alone. No, nobody does it alone. But he helped put his team in a position where Evan McPherson kicked that field goal and the Bengals went on. So when we talk about Joe Burrow and not being deserving, how quickly are we to forget? How quickly are we to forget what he's actually done in this league? He is the only active quarterback that has had an answer for the Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs. And guess what? We're not hanging our hat on that, but to say that this guy is not deserving of the contract that he gets, it's downright asinine. Wins and losses happening in the National Football League. They do. For some reason, Nick Foles had Tom Brady's number. Eli Manning had Tom Brady's number. For some reason. Does that make those quarterbacks better than him? No. Do we say doom and gloom to Joe Burrow after the loss to New England Patriots? No. Is this going to be the last time in his career where Joe Burrow loses to an inferior team that they have no business losing to? No. These things happen. It's part of the NFL. But to say Josh Allen, who literally has led the league in turnovers in the last 2 years, he has. It's been awful with that. Still a very, very good quarterback. To say Lamar Jackson, a guy that has yet to finally break through his team, although he has everything that he needs. I don't know. To say Dak Prescott, a guy that continuously falls short, that has had ridiculously talented defenses, that has had ridiculously talented offenses. But guess what? They run into the thorn of the 49ers in the playoffs, and they can't seem to break through. To say those guys are deserving of their contract, tell me where their conference championship is. Tell me where their Super Bowl appearances, and don't talk to me about individual stats. Don't talk to me about individual awards. Listen, I'm all for the Joe Burrow discourse. I'm all for having that conversation. But don't compare him to guys that have yet to break through in their own damn conference. It's tiring. It's the same narrative that the national media spits out and spins out. Can Herbert not choke in the playoffs, right? Against a Jaguars team? Can Lamar Jackson win more than 2 playoff games? Can Josh Allen not be a regular season hero and finally also break through in the playoffs? And maybe not run his number 1 wide receiver, albeit who was a diva, out of town? Let's be honest. Stop comparing guys who've literally had everything to a guy that literally dragged the carcasses of an offensive line that's not even in the NFL at this point to a Super Bowl. Every season Joe Burrow has completed, the Bengals were either in the Super Bowl or in the AFC Championship. It's not his fault. He tore his ACL because he had offensive line who didn't know how to block. It's not his fault. He tore ligaments in his wrist. Freak accidents. When Joe Burrow is out there, he produces. And Mike Stroud, I don't care if you think it's a bad take. It's my opinion. I talk to people in Buffalo. But these takes have to stop. These takes have to stop. The fact of the matter is, there's only one quarterback in the National Football League right now as it stands. I'm sorry, screw that. In the AFC, I won't disrespect Hurts. I won't disrespect Purdy. But there's only one quarterback in the AFC that you can look at right now and says, you know what? This guy has had the Chiefs number. This guy is our hope from stopping the three-peat. And that's Joe Burrow. You know, people like to throw out the overrated claim, or people like to throw out the, this guy hasn't done anything. You forget what he's done when he first got into the league. You forget what warranted him that contract. Joe Burrow was every bit of deserving of it. And chilling with Chase, I apologize. It was no disrespect to Justin Herbert. Just simply merely addressing the comment that was made. Joe Burrow was 100% deserving of the contract. Which brings me to my next point. and I'm happy that you guys joined me on the Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show presented by TWSN. You know, I believe great quarterbacks overcome inept coaching. I believe that. But at what point does the inept coaching really start to hamper things? Listen, I like Zach Taylor. I think he's a great guy. Spoke with him in 15 minutes. Amazing guy. Awesome. Nothing but good things to say about him. Great leader of men. Makes guys believe in him. Play caller, atrocious. I think we could all agree to that. Joe didn't look like himself yesterday. I agree with that too. Joe looked a little bit conservative out there. There was a lot to be desired from this Bengals football team yesterday. And I can point to turnovers from Charlie Jones. I can point to all of that, but I'm not going to point to any of that. Again, unbiased, real, authentic. I got to point to the $275 million guy that you paid that contract to, and that's the quarterback, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has not shown enough. Everything that we've seen from Joe Burrow since he signed that contract has left us with questions. Now, albeit, last year he started with the calf injury, right? Then he went out with the wrist injury for good. Now, this year, there's just no excuse. You say the guy's healthy. You got all these practice footage of the guy just launching the ball down the field, and yet still he wouldn't throw beyond 30, 40 yards yesterday. Like he just wouldn't do it. Very conservative game plan. The slow starts have to be studied by the Bengals. They have to be studied by the Bengals. And I love some of the questions that we're getting in the comment section. Somebody said, how come our first 15 plays, which are scripted, rarely result in points? Zach Taylor is the answer. I agree. Poor game planning. For me, I spoke about it yesterday. I said, I think that was a situation in which personnel usage was very questionable yesterday. I'll keep saying it. You cannot tell me that there are, with T. Higgins being out, you can't tell me that there are other talented wide receivers on that Bengals offense that are more talented than Jermaine Burton. There aren't. You cannot tell me Tanner Hudson, who's a practice squad lifer, respectfully, is better than Mike Gesicki. At this point, I'd like to see what Tanner McLaughlin has. But if we're going to have a real conversation, we got to have a real conversation. There was personnel problems. I don't understand how a team that has all offseason to prepare for week one was unprepared for week one. And it's not an overreaction because it's a team that we're talking about with championship aspirations. You get punched in the mouth by one of the least talented football teams in the league. It was very clear what they did. They ran the ball down your throat and dares you to do something about it. The play calling on the last drive was downright despicable. It was almost like a cockiness that we were going to get the ball back. And we got the ball back, we're going to score. Grow some balls, will you? That last drive, you decide to punt it. I'll get it. Ryan Rico was having a great game. But in that moment, you took the ball out of your $275 million contract quarterback's hands. And you said, you know what? We're going to rely on our defense, who was struggling to make tackles down the stretch. And guess what they needed to do? Make tackles down the stretch. Come on. That's just a piss poor game plan. But for the life of me, why did you pay Joe Burrow the contract you paid him? What has made Joe Burrow in his career? It's his ability to put the team on his back when the game requires it. You said, nah, we're not going to do that. I'm going to punt the ball, put the ball in Ryan Rico's hand. Anything could happen. They could have blocked the punt. Anything could have happened in that spot. Piss poor game planning. You saw what our guy Parker Blake posted as well. Man, some of the routes were bad. Throwing behind the sticks. I don't know. Dan, what say you?
Yeah, I think it's loaded, Malik. And when I look at the Bengals, I'm not concerned about how the rest of the year is going to finish out. And there's a couple different conversations. Looking at the Joe Burrow contract, he 1000% was deserving of the contract when it first happened. Totally. Like everything that he did leading up to that point, he was totally deserving. Now he's got to prove it. Right. And that's where this season, it is far too early for people to say, oh, he's undeserving of the contract. We got to see. We got to see how this season is. When I saw him last on the field before week 1, he was a top MVP candidate at the end of last year. That's what I was looking at. I'm pretty sure that's what everybody else was looking at, right? After the first couple games, once he got healthy from the calf strain, the dude was on pace for over 5,000 yards. That 49ers game, people forget, that 49ers team was the best team, arguably, in the NFL at that moment. They walked into their trap and absolutely worked the 49ers. And we were talking about Joe Burrow as an MVP. So I still believe Joe Burrow will get back to that. I have, maybe have a little bit of concern, but the part that's kind of making me, not as question this is we've seen this story so many years. And I was just talking about this, right? We were talking about this yesterday on the show that we've seen this last year. We saw this the year before, and we saw this the year before that. We were having the same exact conversation, a little different, obviously, but the same conversation of the slow starts. So that's where I'm not concerned about when I compare Joe Burrow to Lamar Jackson or compare Joe Burrow to Josh Allen, because Burrow has done things that these guys haven't. Now it's up to, hopefully he's not too worried about his own injuries. He kind of looked like, flexing the wrist, seemed a little.
Well, that's all maintenance stuff, right?
Completely.
That's all maintenance stuff. I know. I think that the issue here is you prepare, you prep all this time, and you know what the Patriots are going to do. Run cover 2 at you, make you throw underneath. Okay, we get that. What game plan are you going to have in there that's going to make life a little bit easier? They seem like they unlocked something with the running game at some point throughout the game. They kind of, it took them long enough. It took them almost 4 quarters to realize, hey, maybe this is what we should start doing. Maybe this is what we should start doing. Right? Not enough targets to Jamar Chase earlier in the game, getting that guy involved. He's also a volume guy that gets better as the game goes on, the more you involve him in the game plan. Mike Gesicki, why was he not in there compared to a Tanner Hudson? These are the decisions that I'm talking about. There has to be some semblance of removing your own ego, right, when it comes to coaching. I don't care what doghouse you might have Jermaine Burton in or how much you think Jermaine Burton has to grow. Send that guy out there and say, go. Be a decoy, something. Trent Irwin ain't doing it. Listen, man. The Bengals left a lot to be desired. If you can't hear I'm genuinely disappointed. This is exactly what you could not have started off worse. You can't lose to the Patriots to start the season. This is a rebuilding Patriots team. You lost to Jacoby Brissett, a career journeyman. You knew what the game plan was. They didn't even have to stretch the ball down the field. And when they were going deep down the field, it was so goddamn evident. Tight ends and running the ball. That was the Patriots' game plan. And they got that off.
Yeah, ridiculous. And I think the hard part about this is go look at all other 31 teams, or good majority of them. That's the biggest issue. Who else aren't playing their talented rookies? And this goes back to last season, right? You could go back and look at many of these questionable decisions. Why is Tyler Boyd off the field and we're throwing in Charlie Jones late in the game? Why are we interchanging everybody? Why is Jordan Battle not playing within the first 4 weeks? That was the same conversation we were having last year. And they're slow to change. They are caught in their own ways. And that's what concerns me is, Malik, and this is just an assumption, but I think they go into the game expecting one thing, and no matter what happens in that game, they just kind of stick with it. And that's what concerns me, right? The rotation with the tight ends. If I were to make a prediction, I think before the game, they said, we are going to interchange Eric All. We are going to interchange Drew Sample. We are going to interchange Tanner Hudson. And when something like a Tanner Hudson fumble happens, when something like, holy shit, Mike Gesicki went up and won a 50-50 ball like it's nothing, they stick with the original game plan of, hey, just because that worked right now, let's go away from that. And that's what concerns me. And I think from a head coaching standpoint and a play calling standpoint, I went and watched multiple games, Malik. At halftime, in the third quarter, many teams changed their tune. Holy crap, let's take Austin Eckler out and let's put in Brian Robinson. hey, let's go instead of going with this backup running back, let's go switch it up and let's go with the ground game. That's what concerns me with the Cincinnati Bengals is it seems like they are slow to change in their games. And I'm with you, Malik. I'm not super concerned because I think that the Bengals overlooked the Patriots. And I think that they still have everything that it takes to go out there and put a deep playoff run together, but it's going to take a lot of work, and it's not getting any easier with the Chiefs next week.
You're right, but here's the thing. I've seen people saying nobody's looking forward to this Chiefs game, and it's crazy. Every single time I'm going to take a sip of my coffee or something like that, you never talk enough to give me an opportunity to.
I can
No,
keep
it's
going.
fine. It's fine. No, but I actually am looking forward to the Chiefs game personally.
Yeah.
Because I think if there's no other team that I would want the Bengals to face coming off of an abysmal performance other than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
You want to talk about getting these guys ready, getting these guys going? This is going to be the game that does it. You want to talk about getting these guys ready to answer the challenge? This is going to be the game that does it. It wouldn't shock me if the Bengals won either, to be honest with you. That could be my delusion talking. But I think that the Bengals are well equipped to answer what the Chiefs might throw at them. Now, listen, here's one thing I will say. There is a for the first time going against Patrick Mahomes, I'm more concerned for Isaiah Pacheco and what he might do than what Patrick Mahomes might do. Is that crazy to say?
No.
Isaiah Pacheco is dangerous. Isaiah Pacheco is scary. That's a little dude, but he runs with a lot of force. And, if I'm the Bengals, there got to be an answer to that run game. And it ain't magically just walking through the doors. You got to do something with it. Maybe you got to go out there and make a trade. I have no idea what the answer or said answer is. But Isaiah Pacheco is a scary back. And if Ramondre Stevens did that to you, he rushed for 180 yards?
130, 120.
130. Sorry. They gave up 180 something on the ground, I think, or something like that it was. Because I forgot they made Jacoby Brissett look like Lamar Jackson. There should be concern for Isaiah Pacheco on what that guy's going to do because the Chiefs are going to try to run it down your throat. So they're going to do it. Now, maybe they'll have Chris Jenkins out there. Jordan Battle does need to see more time. Yes. There's no way that guy shouldn't play. He's worldly talented. He's too talented to be riding the bench, rotting on the bench. Again, I'm not the person that makes those calls, but what I say is you need to be concerned about Isaiah Pacheco. I see some people say don't forget about the rookie worthy. 100% you can't forget about him. But the offense also has to answer the challenge. The offense has to answer the call. You have to put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. You have to. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to. You have to find Jamar Chase this game. You have to find T. Higgins pending him playing with the hamstring or not. You have to put the ball in Mike Gesicki's hands. I don't buy the BS notion that the offensive line was bad. It's low-hanging fruit, easy to pick on. Go back and watch the film. Go back and watch the film. They held up as well as they could. Just happened to be at critical moments. But for me, they got to be able to answer the call. What are your thoughts, Daniel, on this game for the Bengals?
Overall, I think it's on paper. On paper, it looks good for the Bengals. And there's when I went back and rewatched the Chiefs versus the Ravens games, I am concerned about Nick Bolton. I am concerned about the Chiefs linebackers. And I think the Chiefs have a great rush defense. And that's kind of what they did against Derrick Henry. They stuffed the hell out of Derrick Henry. The dude only had 48 yards. And that's where they are strong at. Nick Bolton is a great downhill run stuffing linebacker. But I think it's a big game over the middle of the field for the Bengals. I think that's where you got to target. And I look at a Mike Gesicki, and I think if he's out there for more than 7 snaps in the first half, I think he could have a big game. And on paper, that's what I would be targeting. I would be targeting, hey, listen, this is not the game to go pound the rock on the Chiefs. This is the game to go, let's go 5 wide at times. And Joe Burrow's got to be Joe Burrow. And that's what does concern me is this is going to be baptism by fire for Joe Burrow. Hey, you're going to get thrown out there. And I think the game plan's got to be completely different. I think it's, hey, you're going to be throwing 40 times against the Chiefs. And I think that's a serious path to victory for the Cincinnati Bengals over the middle of the field. you got to get Jamar Chase involved. And that's what I would start off with. My game plan against the Chiefs would be, hey, let's spread them out wide and let's start quick pass. Let's get the screen game going. Let's get over the middle of the field. Because the Chiefs, one thing I know about their defense, they are over aggressive. They are completely over aggressive.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to be the key on the offense side. On the defense side, to be honest, it's going to be, hey, I want my cornerbacks and my secondary, they got to prove themselves. I trust Lou Anarumo. I do. I think what Lou Anarumo's done against the Chiefs, what he's done, his track record against the Chiefs, they haven't given up 30 points to the Chiefs in Lou Anarumo's career with the Bengals. And I don't think that happens again next week. I think they hold them under 30 points. And it really is going to be, hey, load the box. I want to load the box. And listen, I'll go let Travis Kelce go one-on-one. That's what I would do. I would put a Dejon Anthony. I'd put a Jordan Battle. I would put a safety on Travis Kelce one-on-one. I wouldn't be too concerned about him beating me over the top. I would definitely have a little over-top coverage on Xavier Worthy. But and this sounds crazy, but let the receivers and Patrick Mahomes beat you. That's what I would do. Because I promise you, if you let Isaiah Pacheco beat you, it is going to be a long game. Because if Isaiah Pacheco goes out there for 20-plus carries, 100-plus yards, Bengals ain't winning. Yeah. That's my prediction. If Pacheco has a big game, the Bengals ain't winning. But if you go stop Pacheco in the first half and you force Mahomes to go make deep throws, listen, that's how a game changes. It's all about momentum. The Bengals were easily going to win the Patriots game, in my opinion, if they would have scored that Gesicki or Tanner Hudson touchdown. That's how football works. It's momentum. And the Bengals were about to have momentum. And something in the Chiefs and Bengals history, when the Bengals get that momentum back, they don't give it back to the Chiefs. And that's going to be the key. Go let Patrick Mahomes make a mistake. So, to be honest with you, it is a perfect storm for the Bengals. They do well when there's negativity on social media. They do well when their feet are held to the fire. And it's weird. Some people work better under pressure, and some people work better when they're coming off of a loss. And it seems like one thing I know, Jamar Chase has been circling this game. Joe Burrow has been circling this game. Zach Taylor and the Bengals have been circling this game. So when I look at the Bengals, they should not be 7th performance this past week, but there's a lot to look for. And like I said, the biggest game plan is going to be stop Isaiah Pacheco, and you got to start out quick in this game. You got to get Jamar Chase involved, and we'll see about T. Higgins, but I'm confident. I'm weirdly confident about this game too.
Well, like I said, I don't believe the narrative that, people. I do believe the narrative that people do play better with their back against the wall, but I'm not here to tell you that bullshit. I'm gonna say you can't lose the New England Patriots at home. Simple as that. No way to come. It was a horrible performance. It was a horrible showing. Team should be better prepared. Joe Burrow should be ready to go. You had a full season, full off season to prepare. Play like shit. Okay, we'll tip that to the cap. We'll talk about it more on State of the Jungle this week. But after that, I'm moving on to week 2. Again, if they go out there and they shit the bed again against the Kansas City Chiefs, then we need to have a deeper conversation. But I think that putting your playmakers out there, relying on them, and letting your quarterback be your quarterback, and the guy that you signed to that huge contract, I think that's a huge part of it.
Quick question for you, real quick.
Yeah.
What is something that would cause you to click the panic button after week 2 in that game? What is the difference between you clicking the panic button? Obviously, a loss. Let's say if it's a close game, you're not going to click, okay, the season's over. If you see this, what would cause you to click the panic button?
After week 2, you're saying?
Yeah, like in that game, like, holy shit, this is bad.
If they are not able to score in the Kansas City Chiefs, because for me, that's something that they've been able to do. They have always seemed to be locked and loaded and ready to go. If they just struggle offensively as a whole, because I genuinely think they are better than the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Bengals offense is better than the Kansas City Chiefs defense. And if they're not able to move the football, if they're not able to make plays, I will then press the panic button. They should, even if they wind up losing, they should be in this game through it all. They should be. And if they are not, if it's not even a semblance of a game, then I'll start pressing the panic button. Because for me, this is all the motivation you need. This is all the motivation you need. Obviously, people are putting Burrow getting hurt. That would press of course, that would press the panic button, of course. But no, I think with all things considered, if he's able to be healthy, if he's out there, the only thing that make me press the panic buttons if they're not able to effectively move the ball offensively. That's what will do it for me.
Yeah.
So I expect them to answer the call. I expect them to answer the challenge. But again, this was a shit show performance. I have nothing positive necessarily to take away that will be like, hey, you know what? We did this really, really well. That can build upon. It was bad. It was bad. And the ability to rip it up, strip yourself from your ego is a huge part of it. Huge part of it. But I'll be honest with you, losing to the New England Patriots, it don't get much worse than that. You know?
Yeah.
It don't get much worse than that.
And like you said, that's where there are obviously little takeaways, but at the end of the day, right, there is nothing. 10 points against the New England Patriots team that you should have beaten. I'm with you. And I think that's what is making me look forward to this upcoming week is this is everything we asked for. This is when we talk about the Bengals being a Super Bowl caliber team. Let's go out and show it. Go out and show it. And
hey, let me just say this really quick. I don't usually say this on my morning show. Aaron, shut up. Shut up. What are you talking about? Saying excuse for Burrow as usual. No one's making excuses for Burrow. I said he played awful. He played abysmal. He played like he didn't have confidence. What do you want me to say? He sucks. He's horrible. The Bengals should move on from him. Is that what you want me to say? Come on, brother. Come on. Let's deal in the word of reality. Did the Bengals potentially overlook Kansas City? Can't overlook the Patriots? Sure, that could be part of it. But even in an overlooking performance, you put up 10 points. You put up 10 points? That's what you do. That's your end game. So no, I can't have excuses. I can't just say they overlooked. It was a piss poor game plan. It was a piss poor game plan through and through. Unprepared, lack discipline. You know, I'm going to tell you like it is on the show. I'm not going to tell you, oh, well, you know, they have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins going to be back. Everything's going to be. No, I don't know that. I don't know that. We need to see Joe Burrow be Joe Burrow. Rip it up if it ain't working. Make something happen. Trust your playmakers. That's what you need to do. That's my thoughts. If you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Oh, I think I'm realizing Aaron is a Ravens fan. That's what it is. He's a Ravens fan. So he's coping with the fact that Lamar Jackson is still inaccurate even after his 2 MVPs. Got it. That makes sense. Sorry, I had to take a little dig there. We want to get you guys all squared away and, you know, prepared for your bets for Monday Night Football. Daniel, this is where I'll let you cook, my man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited for this game overall. This is a huge game when it comes to NFL standpoint. I think we're going to learn a lot about the Jets, and I think we're going to learn a lot about can the 49ers come back and deal with the Super Bowl hangover. Right now, the 49ers are 4.5-point favorites. They're minus 200. There's a couple plays I like. Let me just start this off. My favorite 2 plays, and these are my 2 official plays. We're going to have our full plays for everybody who's watching. You can check out the link in the description, as well as we'll have our QR code up here. The TWSN Patreon is where we post our full plays. Malik, myself, the entire team will post UFC, NFL, NBA best bets the entire season. Go check it out. Super affordable. We've got a Discord as well, so go check it out. But 2 official plays I love. I'm going to the receivers. I'm looking at number 1. I'm looking at Deebo Samuel over 48.5 receiving yards. This line is an absolute hammer. I don't understand how this line is this low, right? It was reported that Brandon Ayuk is not 100% for this game. I believe whether it was injuries or just ramping up due to training camp, he's not going to be 100%. So Brandon Ayuk isn't going to go out there, and he never was a 10 target a game type of guy. But Deebo Samuel has the perfect matchup for this game. The reason why I say that is it's the Jets defense. The Jets defense, they have a great outside corner in Sauce Gardner. They have a great defense to cover 4 zone is you go through the middle of the field. You use your guys on the drag routes. You use your playmakers. You get them in screens. And who's the guy that they often move around a lot? It's Deebo Samuel. And often when you look at cover 4, the biggest issue that tends to happen is yards after the catch, right? Is because they've got 4 guys playing deep. The middle of the field is kind of jumbled. And who's the best yards after catch guy in the NFL? Arguably, it is Deebo Samuel. So I look at a guy like Deebo Samuel, and I look at a lot of these other receiving lines in the NFL. These guys have 50, 60, 70-yard. CeeDee Lamb had 88-yard receiving line. Deebo's at 48.5. So I look at the rushing game with Christian McCaffrey, who's currently questionable. He will play, but was dealing with the injury in training camp. And I just don't understand how his line is this low. So Deebo Samuel, 48.5 yards over. I'd also sprinkle on 75 plus. And if you want to go a little big, I'd parlay 48.5 with an anytime touchdown. I think Deebo Samuel gets in the touchdown.
But I just wanted to touch on here. I love Garrett Wilson's receptions today.
Yes.
At 5.5. I think he's going to have over 100 yards receiving too.
Yes.
I do not think the San Francisco 49ers cornerback room can deal with him and Aaron Rodgers connection. I still don't feel that it's going to round into form, obviously, just this game. But I really do believe that Garrett Wilson should have a strong performance against the San Francisco 49ers defense. And I also wonder if George Kittle, I've been high on George Kittle the last couple of years, and I've kind of just been underwhelmed a little bit with his usage in the system. It's always a weird to see the usage in terms of in the passing game with Christian McCaffrey. Sometimes they go to him heavily, sometimes they don't. It's very, very weird. I also like Breece Hall's receptions today, Daniel, but I like it at the sweet spot of 4. I don't know if I like it over 4.5 though.
Is it 4.5?
It's at 4.5. I don't know
That's
if I like
high.
it.
I like 4.
Yeah.
I definitely like 4, and I think you made a great point about Garrett Wilson. How I view this Jets offense is it really is Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, and that's pretty much it, right? I look at what Aaron Rodgers has done. You go look at his top receivers in his entire career. You had Devontae Adams, you had Jordy Nelson. He tend to go to one specific wide receiver, and I don't see a world where any other receiver on the Jets gets more than 3 receptions. So give me Garrett Wilson. I love him to get over 5 receptions. I also love, like you said, I'm going to sprinkle on his over 100 yards. This game just screams a huge Garrett Wilson game. I think first drive, we see 2 receptions, quick passes, and all the tea leaves are there. And this is what betting when the NFL week 1 has been is, hey, go trust what the teams are showing you in preseason. Trust what they're showing you in training camp. And all training camp, it has been Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson working 101. It has been Garrett Wilson after Garrett Wilson. The dude is a top 10 talent at the wide receiver position. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see some like Cooper Kupp did yesterday. Cooper Kupp went out for 14 receptions, I believe over 100 something yards. And I think we see something similar to Garrett Wilson. If you guys think the 49ers mollywop the Jets, that means Garrett Wilson's going to have at least 10 plus targets. So give me Garrett Wilson over 5.5 receptions and give me him 68.5 receiving yards. That's a piece of cake. That's a first half line, Malik. 68.5 is first half.
Would you touch Aaron Rodgers over 1.5 passing touchdowns tonight?
If you want me to be honest, I would say no.
Wow, really?
I would say no, and just because I don't like the other receivers. If anything, I think the value, I would play Garrett Wilson to have 2 touchdowns, or I just don't trust Aaron. I think Breece Hall could, when they comes to the goal line, I think they could go with Breece Hall. I think it's possible. What I would honestly do, I would take Breece Hall touchdown because I think Breece Hall can get it. It's only Breece Hall, in my opinion, or Garrett Wilson. I don't think anybody else catches a touchdown, but that could be me. So I don't know. I don't really trust. Like I said, Mike Williams is another guy. Like his line's at 27.5. In my opinion, I think you take the under on Mike Williams. It's been reported that, he's questionable heading into this game. He hasn't been practicing a lot. And that's why I think there's a guy by the name of Alan Lazard who has a ton of chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. It wouldn't shock me if I see Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and them just run a jumbo package. So I don't trust Mike Williams. I think Tyler Conklin is a fine tight end. He could be another guy that gets a decent amount, but honestly, something, Malik, I'm going to do you one better. I think Breece Hall, I take his over receiving yards. Obviously, I like his line at 4. I think if Breece Hall gets 4 receptions, I think he crushes that number. We saw him many times last year take a 2-yard screen pass, 80 yards to the house, 60 yards to the house. I think Breece Hall is that good. So I like him over 28.5 receiving yards, and I'd probably parlay him and Garrett Wilson over receiving yards.
I like those. Now, let me ask you the golden question. Who wins tonight?
Man.
Come on, it ain't that difficult. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. You're doing too much.
No, I'm with you. I just don't think there's a lot of value. If anything, honestly, what I would do, I would just take alternate spread. I think the 49ers win by 7, if anything. I just don't see minus 200 is 49ers will win. I don't know if I'd bet minus 200. But if you want
it's going to get close. So, I mean, I would probably
bet.
one of those live bet those. I think it's going to be one of those games where you just live bet. One thing, you guys, again, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. Want to get to a question that was asked from Travis Squaller. And he said, curious, Malik and Daniel, personal thought on Chase telling reporters to ask Zach for all the negatives for the game. I think that's a player that is trying to tell you without telling you the game plan was shit. It was very similar to when they were asking him, I believe his rookie season, they asked him about the lack of deep balls. And he said the same thing. I don't know. You got to ask Zach about that. I think they all know. I think the elephant is in the room. And I don't think that it's a thing trying to create turmoil, negativity, or anything like that. I think it's really a situation in which this team knows how good they could be, but they don't. While Joe Burrow has been struggling, I don't feel like they feel they're being helped out with the play calling. And that was evident when you go turn on the film. And I think that this is their way of letting it be known to a degree. I can read the tea leaves. I speak bullshit. I'm very fluent in it. And I feel like uh I feel like the Cincinnati is so grateful to have a receiver like Jamar Chase or a quarterback like Joe Burrow because they tell it like it is. Even if they don't outright just say it, they tell it like it is. And I think you can read the tea leaves. They know that they're better than that. They know there's no reason why this offense shouldn't be putting up 20 plus a game at the very least. There's no reason why you shouldn't be. But you can't outright say that because that's not the right thing to do. That's not the professional thing to do. So I'll say what needs to be said. Zach's got to get it together. But Joe has to get it together as well. That was a piss poor performance, and you can't have performances like that, not for a Super Bowl hopeful team. Those are my thoughts. Very, very curious to hear what you guys' thoughts are. Again, we'll be back live tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And we'll be talking this through. I feel like this will be a discussion we'll have all week, honestly, because that performance was really worth the heat that it's going to get. But how are they going to respond? That's going to be the big thing. How are they going to respond? How is this Bengals football team going to respond to the negativity, to everybody being down on them, for people saying Joe Burrow is overrated, people calling for Zach? How are they going to respond to that? It'll be interesting. Appreciate you guys. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, and don't miss when we go live or upload content. Content coming out each and every single day. We'll be live tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. I hope that you guys join me again tomorrow to talk things through, all things NFL. But remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, listening to sports,